by reading a very short note. Imagine a group of morons engaged in their work. They're carrying bricks in an open field. As soon as they've stacked all those bricks at one end of the field, they proceed to transport them to the other end. This continues every day, every year. One day, one of those morons stops long enough to ask himself what he's doing. He wonders what purpose there is in carrying the bricks. Slide. I am the moron who's carrying the bricks. These words are from a suicide note. This person found no meaning in his work. And yes, he killed himself. I'm here today to talk about the future of meaningful work. And I believe two trends are going to influence that future. First, more work is going to be provided by fewer, larger corporations. Now, this doesn't mean that there'll be less work, but it just means that these fewer, larger corporations will have more control over how we experience our work. The second trend is that, of course, artificial intelligence and robotics will continue to subsume tasks that were previously performed by humans. Again, this doesn't mean that there'll be less work in the future, only that there'll be fewer kinds of work. Us humans will have fewer choices of occupations and professions. So what do these two trends have to do with the future of meaningful work? Right now, in the world of work, we create meaning through change. If you've got a job that loses meaning, and if you want a more meaningful job, you go change jobs. You go find meaningful work. But in the future that I've described with less choice, how are we going to find meaningful work? Well, to create that meaning, we need choices. We need choices of different occupations and different places to work, different professions. So in the future, though, we're going to have to ask ourselves a different question. Instead of asking ourselves, how will we find meaningful work, I believe we have to ask this. How will we make work meaningful? So why is this a better question? This is a better question because it shows that humans create meaning. We create meaningfulness. How do we do that? Well, understand how we create meaning. We have to understand how we ever invented this thing called meaning in the first place. Because there was a time in our evolutionary history when we first infused something with meaning. Perhaps if we can understand that, we can understand how we can make work meaningful now and in the future. So let's travel back in time. Let's travel back in time to when, let's say, you and I are the first hominids on the human genetic tree. We're on the lush plains of what is now Africa. It's 5 to 10 million years ago, and we've just climbed a tree to eat some fruit. Whoops. There I am. I'm there with you. We're eating fruit. And I see a piece of lush, juicy fruit that's just out of my reach. So I swing over onto a much smaller branch to grab that fruit. But that branch breaks. First thing that happens, see my slides here? Hungry lion. Hungry lion that was resting in the shade leaps into action. You watch that lion rip me apart. You watch that lion eat me, right? What did you do next? Well, if we learn from other animals, it's likely that you made a lot of noise, maybe you climbed higher in the tree, but when that lion was done with me, here's what you did. You went back to eating fruit. Isn't that incredible? That's what most animals appear to do. They just appear to carry on with their lives in the face of death. But now let's go back only 2 million years, where you're going to have a much more modern reaction to my death because your brain is getting bigger and something called behavioral modernity has happened. So what is behavioral modernity? It's the development of abstract thought. It's the development of cooperation beyond our kin and groups. It's the development of art and social norms. It's the mastery of technology like blades and phenomenon like fire. And in that point in human evolution, three things happened at once. First thing, you're aware that the death that happened to me could happen to you. Next, you feared death. And third, created culture. Behavioral modernity is the beginning of culture. So let's climb back up into that tree and let's see how the more modern you did exactly this. There's the more modern you. We're in that tree together. And again, I see a piece of plump, juicy fruit that's just out of my reach. So again, I swing over onto that smaller branch, reach out for that fruit. What happens again? That branch breaks. I fall to the ground. But this time, you watch that hungry lion. You're terrified. He rips me apart. He eats me. He consumes me. All that's left of me is just like a few drops of my blood in the scuffed out bird. This time, you know that what that lion did to me, he could do to you. But now, I've got a bit of fat on me, so that lion trots off all full to the watering hole. Now's your chance. You shimmy down that tree, and you run, terrified, back to the protection of our cave. Within minutes, you're sitting at the back of the cave, surrounded by our cave mates around the fire. Of course, it's a much quieter cave now that I'm gone. You miss me? You're sad. But what's even more important is you're almost paralyzed with fear, because you're asking yourself, how can I leave this cave if all there is to life is being eaten by lions? Or why should I leave this cave if all I am is lion food? But then you ask yourself, what's the meaning of it all? And right then, you push your hand into the mud at the bottom of the cave, you stand up, press it to the cave wall, and there it is. Something real, something that no lion can ever take away from you. You now believe that if you're eaten by lions, all your cave mates will remember you every time they see that handprint. That handprint will exist, and you do not. So what is that handprint? Is it art? Is it religion? Is it a job for a handprinter? Well, it can be all those things, but it's one thing for sure, and that's culture. When you made that handprint, that culture, you infused the terror of my death with meaning. Your new awareness of death, your fear of death, and your subsequent creation of that culture is something defined by terror management theory. Terror management theory says that us humans created culture as a buffer against the terror we would experience if we contemplated the nature of our existence. And that nature is an unpredictable time of death and complete annihilation at death. We created cultures of meaning because life without meaning is unlivable. Our handprint culture gives you now the courage to leave the cave and carry on with your perilous human existence. But that handprint is not much help to us today. Where's life's meaning to be found today? Well, luckily, us humans are masters at creating culture. We've created a full and diverse menu of culture. We can immerse ourselves in things like religions or a range of social norms, everything from being a good friend to a good spouse and, of course, being a good parent. Perhaps we immerse ourselves in a lifelong quest for knowledge. Or maybe it's sports. And of course, let's not forget about art and design. There are so many handprints out there. One of those handprints, one of those cultures, is something called the world of work. We can immerse ourselves in our occupation, in our profession, in the place that we work. And if our job stops being meaningful, well, we just go change. We find meaningful work. But in that future, I've said we have to ask a better question. We have to ask, how will we make work meaningful? So how exactly do we do that? Well, we do that when we stop listening to everybody else who's telling us what work is meaningful, and we make our own handprint on the world of work. When we make that handprint in the world of work, we reclaim our capacity for meaning making, and only then can we actually make work meaningful. So how do we actually make work meaningful? Well, luckily, only have to remember 3 things. First, life's meaning is to be found through immersion in culture. Second, the world of work can be a deeply meaningful culture that's awaiting our immersion. But you can never forget this last thing. You're all free to make your own meaning of your own work. And we all must do this because the alternative is unacceptable. Remember that suicide note? Well, let's look at it again. But let's change it a bit based on what I've talked about here today. Here's the beginning. Imagine a happy group of, not morons, just people engaged in their work. Yep, they've got that job where they're just carrying bricks in an open field, and as soon as they've stacked them and run into the field, they proceed to transport them to the other end. But this time our observer writes something different. He says, I can never understand what meaning they choose to make of their work, but I know I'm free to create my own meaning of my own work. Only I must understand the meaning of my work and the meaning of my life. My freedom to create meaning is the source of my well-being. I am at peace. Thank you so much for your time today.